Um, let's start by filling in the questionnaire then. It'll take you a few minutes and it's about how you are right now at this point in time. And you're not going to show it to anybody, so this is just for you. Have you got to the relaxing without cigarettes, alcohol or food one? Because most people have a little laugh when they get to that one. They go, oh. So just to say, once you've done that, if you've got all your numbers in, you add each one of the areas up. So you add up the pink, the blue, the purple. So you end up with 6 figures. I didn't think I was going to do this with you. I thought I was just, but as it's a small group, we might as well do it, and I'll explain it to you. Sounds like somebody's trying to get in. So you'll end up with 6 figures. And what we're looking at, it's not how high your figures are. It's about the balance between each section. So you're looking at whether you've got balanced resilience. And I'll talk you through now you've done it. Are you all more or less done? You what? Oh, for adding up. Yeah, that's always the hard bit of it, isn't it? Okay, so I'll start by talking you through this so you can kind of get an idea of what it is that we're doing. So this is based on resilience and the definition of resilience, which is talked about so much now, isn't it? Used to be used more for people in terrible circumstances or children growing up in difficult circumstances, but now it's become a term that's used in business. So maybe that indicates that work is getting a little bit more difficult in terms of situations at work, so it requires people to be very flexible. So resilience is the ability to recover. It's not that you never get ill, it's not that you never get down, it's not that you never get depressed. It's the actual ability to recover, like elasticity. Yeah? And we work a lot with that with people, and this little matrix is something I developed working for years and years on stress. My background is occupational therapy, psychotherapy, and I piloted and designed a stress and mindfulness program for Transport for London many years ago, which still runs, and lots of programs are based on that now. And out of that, I got very interested in resilience as opposed to stress, because I think resilience is more than managing stress. Yeah? So, hang on, I'll get my little clicker. So, after researching it and doing lots and lots of work with people, I found that there's 6 areas. One is our own optimism or positivity, inner buoyancy. So actually, are you a cup half full, glass half full person? Are you a glass half empty? So this is born into us in the left prefrontal cortex of the brain. We have a tendency to be one or the other, a born worrier or a kind of positive person. We can change that, particularly through meditation we can change that, but that's our tendency. So that's one aspect of resilience. Obviously, if you're an optimist, It kind of makes life a little bit easier. You bounce back a bit more quickly. You can see positive things in difficulties afterwards. Be weird if you saw them in difficulties at the time. Then it's how do you think? So supportive thinking. Are you aware that thinking has a massive effect on your physiology? How am I helping or hindering this situation with the way I think? We have patterns of thinking. Thinking is massively powerful. How do we organise and apply ourselves? Can we problem solve? Can we goal set? Can we focus and adapt? Community and networks, are you trying to do things on your own all the time? Resilient people tend to network, like today, networking, getting advice or talking to somebody about talking things through. So resilient people tend not to try and do everything all themselves. Managing stress, self-control. Can you switch off? Can you think through consequences of your actions? And how do you look after yourself? Positive living. And that's where the well-being aspect comes in as well. Diet, exercise, positive routines around looking after yourself. Does that make sense? So we do a lot of work around this model of resilience because it's a very direct and easy way to have a look at where you are in your life. Looking at this now, you feel as if you're in competition with next door, don't you? But looking at this now, you've probably got quite a clear snapshot of where your resilience is strong, whether it's balanced, and if there's any areas that
Your attention please, can the owner of a red Vauxhall PL15 DA0, PL15 DA0, please move your car as it is in a no parking space, thank you.
Oh, that's nobody here. No. Okay, so I can't even remember where I was then. Where was I? Resilience. So you get a little snapshot of where you are right now. Do you think that's an accurate snapshot when you look at it? Can you see, how you're looking after yourself? Are you quite flexible? Are you somebody who bounces back? So with this, once you've done that, we might present that in a workshop, or we might do it in a health fair, like a health event like out there. The occupational therapist would ask you to fill that in, and then if it indicated low on the stress side, they would then ask you more questions about stress and being stressed. So it would help identify things. So we can do also, there's an e-learning program that goes with that. There's workshop, there's all those kind of things. Do you do anything like that in your business or work or anything like that? No? Okay, so it's quite an interesting thing to do in terms of keeping people well. And it's really useful for staff retention. So for example, I want to just do this, hang on. I'm using it quite a lot with social workers who work with child protection issues to see where they are in terms of burnout, because there's a very fast turnover in social workers working with child protection issues because of compassion and trauma, vicarious trauma. So when we have a model to help them check their resilience, they can see, and this is the long-term picture, is to try to help retain people so they don't get too damaged and burnt out by the job. I'm also doing that a lot with enforcement officers, revenue protection inspectors, people who check tickets, they get beaten up quite regularly. So again, we're like looking at their resilience. I mean, I did forget to introduce myself because I was a bit, so I am, a trauma consultant as well. So the trauma, the occupational therapy and the psychotherapy all come together when I was designing this, yeah. It's good when you're managing change or big projects at the moment. Say in London there's a huge tunnel going through and it's the mayor's election and it's all that sort of stuff. A lot of high profile. We used it before the Olympics to get people ready to deliver the Olympics, which was very much in the media. So how resilient are you? Hello, I forgot. let me give you a little, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, because we started and we filled it in.
All right.
So then you know what I'm talking about, yeah? Okay, so that's one of the key things. I think it's a very, very good tool, and it helps people as well about how they're looking after themselves. So it also goes along with what's happening out there, which is these pop-up health events. So they're also part of resilience. You know, if I can look after myself, understand what I eat, my blood sugar cycle, make the right choices, understand, you know, how exercise can help my mood, how nutrition can help my mood, then people can start to create a more resilient culture in organisations. Some organisations, I don't know where you work, but they don't leave their desk for lunch. It's no good, that's no good. Yeah, don't have lunch, work too late, don't turn the BlackBerry off or whatever it is. Yeah, do work at the weekends, have a look at emails on a Sunday night so that you won't be on your back foot on Monday. You know, these are all right for a very short space of time, but you don't really want to be doing that long term, because long term it just creates a habit where you don't even go to the toilet because you haven't got time. So I work in the NHS and people don't go to the toilet. You know, they go to work, they start at 7, and at 3:30 they haven't been to the loo because they haven't drunk enough water. They haven't stopped. We are not designed to keep going for that length of time on adrenaline. So this is all part of resilience, it's all part of understanding. And as organisations, I think we can do a lot to help people, to support them, and also to show, you know, that it's important. As people and people working, you're important. So basically, having worked over a lot of years with places, if the people at the top aren't committed to it, it's dead in the water, really. You know, you can have your nice things, your massage coming in, and your this, that, and the other, but if the people on the top don't really support it or value it, it doesn't really go anywhere. So you've got to get top-level commitment, I think, when you're looking at health and well-being in the workplace. And risk, and also, what are the risks of the job? Is it a long hours job? Is it a face-to-face job? Is it are you listening to concerns and complaints all the time? You know, that kind of thing. So what are the risks? Where do people need to be strong? And where do you understand that resilience is about having a team as well? And that a team is a resilient thing in work? So when you stop people talking to each other, you stop people communicating, you're interfering in their resilience. So what do you want? I'm just wondering what you want to know. As we've got a small group, what kind of things do you do if we have like primary, secondary and tertiary approaches to a good well-being strategy? So good well-being strategy has organisational strategy, it has proactive and prevention, and then it also has a strategy around what to do when people are not coping. So when you think about a health and well-being strategy, you want to think about it in those 3 ways. What are we doing in terms of flexible working? What are we doing, you know, in terms of that kind of thing, training and all of that? And then we want to, what are we doing proactively around educating people, supporting people, giving them an opportunity to look after their health? And then what do we do when people aren't coping for some reason? Where do we have a good system of signposting? Do we have that? So what do you have? What do you have in your experience in terms of this kind of organisational stuff? Do you have anything? Yeah? Yeah. Yes. Presenteeism is very much about the secondary strategy. That's what helps people be present. It's what you do and encourage in the workplace, how you support people, how you give them information and allow people to participate. So that's what helps people, you know, more in terms of presenteeism, and to know where to go to get support, to get help, to get information. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, which is why I think you can do seminars on managing stress, neurophysiology, you know, how to look after yourself, what's resilience. That's all really, it's a good question because that all really affects presenteeism. How happy you are at work, yeah, how well you get on with your colleagues, that kind of thing. How well rested you are so you're not knackered when you get in, that kind of thing. Do you have anything like this? Or you might have some other things that are really good? No? Do you really have nothing like that where you work? Okay. That's interesting.
I think for us it's more one-to-one because we kind of identify if our staff need help.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we do little one-to-one things.
Right.
Actually, in places of
Would you use that? No,
No.
okay. One-to-one. So you're saying it's more one-to-one? Yeah, okay. So it's almost got there before you, yeah, so the secondary bit's missing, like the more educational seminars, workshops, e-learning programs, those kind of things that you can put in place that give people information. And then on the tertiary one, you've got the one-to-ones more. Like you might have an EAP or a counselling service or something like that. Do you? Anybody have that? Yeah?
I take on quite a few school leavers, apprentices,
Yeah,
and I find it amazing that the transition from school to working,
yeah.
it's like they're leaving the mum every day, that you've got to look after them.
Okay, that's really good.
I find it hard.
Yeah.
And in my days, you got the here. Nowadays, you can't say anything to them, they start crying, they're falling up,
Okay, so you're saying that by taking on school leavers, they actually need really looking after, and their resilience is not so high? That's what you're saying, isn't it? That they haven't, if we went backwards to this resilience model again, taking on school leavers, this ability to recover, and it's a big change and adaptation, requires people to be positive, to have good habits and self-discipline, to be able to learn, to be flexible, to relate. It's difficult. It's like what? Verge of bullying. Oh, no, didn't say that. Yeah, so you have to be quite strong in your leadership in order to help them start to build this resilience. It's the real world. And it's an adapting, isn't it? So that's interesting because that model can be used, that resilience model can be used to coach people and coach teenagers, coach parents. We use it with parents of kids who won't go to school. It's finding the time, yeah. Yeah, it is finding the time. But if they did it as an e-learning model, then they can do it as part of being there. So, or an app. We're looking at developing an app at the moment. So that's for young people, that's like their bread and butter. It's not mine, but it's theirs, isn't it? And that might be useful. What do you need to do to be resilient, to get through change, whether it's leaving school and working or a relationship or a new job, all that sort of thing. Now, this is interesting because we did a piece of work with TfL where we did fast-track assessment, and that meant that people were referred by managers very quickly. So if you're a manager, this is a very important thing to know, that the longer you leave referring somebody, wherever it's to, whether it's the doctor, whether it's the counselling service, wherever it's to, the chances of them staying off for a long time are increased the longer you leave it. So as soon as somebody isn't coping, you need to get them some help because you won't lose them for as long. And we did that for a year with the train drivers at Transport for London. And they were spoken to within 24 hours and fast-tracked through to counselling or back care or, and they tracked the difference in absence. It went down dramatically from 94 days to 31. So it's really worth getting people help as quickly as you can. If they don't want it, you can't do it. You can only offer it. It's really hard, and you can try to explain why and be on the same side. But if somebody is very stressed, they're on threat alert, and then you become the threat, and then it's very difficult to take help from somebody that you feel is a threat. So it's quite difficult, isn't it, to manage people when they're quite stressed or anxious, because once that old brain is switched on and you get that threat alert, then the manager becomes very often part of that potential threat. Does that make sense to you? So you want to help the person. You can see them struggling, but they see you as, you know, being something a bit dangerous, or having a go at them, or checking up on them. And so it's a very difficult thing, which is why I think the secondary prong of that intervention, education on what happens and how to spot the signs in your colleagues, as well as, you know, people that work for you. So it's a peer thing. That's really important. How do we spot that in each other? Because sometimes a friend or a peer can say something that a manager can't. You know, it's very hard if you're stressed and somebody says relax. You just want to bite the head off, don't you? Or kill them. Right. So piloting work, we do lots of, I think piloting work, it's really, really good with new interventions, is to pilot work. Because sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it's not, what you think is a good idea isn't actually appropriate. So what is it you want to do? And then set up a pilot scheme and give yourself 3 months, 6 months, whatever that is. And then put an evaluation. What are we going to measure at the end of this? What is it we want? What are we going to measure? And then do your work and do your evaluation and have a look. Maybe it throws up something you hadn't even realised. It might take you in another direction. You know, I did something in a call centre, and it was a customer complaint centre, and they thought people were all stressed because of the customer complaints. But when I actually did the work with them, they were stressed because they're young and they couldn't afford to leave home. And their parents and living at home, and their siblings were stressing them out. And also a lot of them bought too many pairs of shoes, and they didn't have the money to pay for them. So they weren't managing the money, so we gave them all a deadline to help them manage the money, and we did a sort of budgeting program with them and all that sort of thing, because what the managers thought was stressing them out wasn't. They were perfectly fine with the calls. It was the situation at home and travelling in and living with their mum and dads when they really wanted to get a flat. So that was quite an interesting one. Do you know what I mean? It's good to pilot. It's good to get the information about what's actually going on, not what we imagine is going on. And then you can, if it's good, your evaluation, you've done your work, you can make a business case. So then you've got something to take forward, and you can make a case for that, rather than just something that's a bit woolly, or, you know. So I'm very hot on making business cases and evaluating and piloting work. Oh, I think oh dear, it's not my strong point. So I just did a little case study there. Can somebody keep an eye on the time? Trish, can you tell me what? Okay, so I've got 5 minutes. Okay, good. Okay, so this is a company that we went into. We just started doing, you know, like the drop-in health things that are over there. So we were doing blood pressure and all of that. And then the information we got from that, and we do, by the way, we do a lot of night work as well, because night workers have more cortisol. That's the stress hormone. They're often quite neglected. They're doing stuff while everybody else is in bed, so they're doing a lot of maintenance and that kind of thing. So we did a mixture of night and day work with their employees, and we did just what's there. People could drop in. It's entirely up to them. They didn't have to use the service, but they had an opportunity to talk to, you know, trainers, nutritionists, get their health checks done, and have a fill in one of these resilience questionnaires. And they have very high sickness absence. So I don't know if you know what your sickness absence is, but theirs is high. So we ran 4, and then what we did was we picked up what is it people are struggling with. So we then went on and ran for them little fairs that were based on nutrition, loads of nutrition, loads of, then the next fair was all about resilience and stress. So we were able to sort of really focalise what we were doing as a result of doing those 4. And now what we're doing is we're doing something called Wham Clinics, which work absence management clinics, but I quite like Wham. And you get a nurse, an osteopath, and an OT, because the 3 reasons for people going off work are generally musculoskeletal, ongoing health conditions, and stress, depression, and anxiety. So we've got a clinic that goes in monthly, and people who are off or who are just managing to stay at work, managing those things, can go attend this clinic with support, and it's a dedicated team of people. You don't get different people coming in all the time. They build relationships. Does that make sense to you? So you're actually at the workplace getting a second opinion, getting an osteopath to look at your x-ray, getting your exercises, so that you don't have to go somewhere else to get it or go on a big long waiting list. And and also as managers, you can go and talk to somebody at that clinic and say, I've got somebody with this, how would I manage it? How can I support them and help them? Because as managers, very often don't know where to turn. So we're doing those. One-to-one resilience drop-ins. So I do this a lot for staff retention, particularly in places like press offices where journalists get vicarious trauma if they're covering difficult stories. So you go in, confidentially people can come and see you for half an hour once a month. You've just put themselves in, and they can talk about how it's going with work, how their stress and resilience is, if there's stuff going on outside work. It's confidential, and that's very, very popular, and that's also starting there. And then this fast track assessment service where managers can refer people, and within 24 hours they get an assessment, and then they're fast tracked through to the appropriate service. That might be the physio, yeah. And then we've also got this 6-week stress program that people do, which is the one in the white paper, government white paper. So it was started in TfL about 14 years ago. I started it. It's a mixture of stress management and mindfulness, and that's a very popular program. Oh, I keep doing that. There's something about not learning, isn't there? So some comments. People enjoy the health fairs. They enjoy coming back. They enjoy finding out about, how well they are and how to manage things. We quite often, not loads and loads, but it's not unusual to pick up people with diabetes before they realise. This is very important. We can pick up irregular heartbeats because we do the pulse as well. So this has also been very helpful for a couple of people who've then gone to the doctor and, found out they've got a heart condition. And it's just fun. I think people enjoy it. There's a smoothie bike. They make smoothies by pedalling like mad. It's kind of fun event, really, but it's very informative. And they know they can come back in 4 months, and they can see the same people and get support with it all. Oh. So I'm going to finish because it's about 1:45, isn't it? I won't do those. That's just who we are. So what do you think? Any questions? It's just a brief run through of how you might, when you consider a strategy or doing something to help people, think about how it fits, think about what you want out of it, and have a go and give yourself a time limit, and then have an assessment. Don't let it just run or dribble out or whatever. There's a very good network at Transport for London called Wellbeing that people have set up who've got ongoing mental health problems like depression, anxiety, bipolar depression, and they meet once a month, and it has a forum, and it's absolutely brilliant. And the people that I help who are managing those problems or conditions, they find it invaluable, because it's a peer network, mental health support. They understand each other, they get speakers in, they recommend books, it's fabulous. So anything that's run as a peer support is also very, very good.